Morning. It looks like we may be getting to the point where it's time to replace our hat that we've worn all summer and fall. It's got a little bit of dirt and grime on it. The weather today is supposed to be somewhat decent, or at least better than it's been for the previous week. So we are finally going to try and conquer a long list of projects that we put on the back burner for far too long. Before we dive headfirst into this, I do need to collect some supplies. This is one of them. Probably ought to add cleaning out the back of my truck to the list too. This is another very important part of our work. Any guesses so far as to what we might be heading to do? Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Our ingredients are all located in different areas on the farm. I'm gonna need some of that. Surely at this point in time, you have a good idea what we're about to go do. Oh man, I feel like I'm wrangling a snake. You stay in there. Hopefully my Uncle Chris is around and feels like helping with some tile work today. You could do this by yourself without issue, but it does help to have an extra gopher around in case you need a different size of tile. There's an interesting assortment of tile shapes and sizes laying around here in the barn. The problem is I don't know what exactly we're going to need to fix our issues. Since Chris is going to be helping us, we can always run back and get more if we need it. Chris is taking the truck. I'm going to take the backhoe. Need to make one quick pit stop before I head to dig. As opposed to using this all-purpose bucket, I'm going to attempt to get my ditch digging bucket that has a flat edge so I can scoop out the bottom of these holes without the added risk of spiking the tile that's already there. The only possible issue with this is that we've not taken this other bucket off in close to a year, maybe even 18 months, and they tend to stick. Okay, disregard everything I've said. I can't get it unlocked, so we're just gonna use this bucket. I still stand by what I said. I almost need to weld a flat bar or bolt a flat bar onto the teeth of this all-purpose bucket. The farm was actually considering buying a mini excavator or mini hoe, depending on what you want to call it, but we opted to put in all that tile on some of those wet hole farms instead. Our first hole we've been farming around for probably the last 3 years. Just haven't had a good opportunity to fix it. There she is right there. We're lined up perpendicular to the route of this tile. I'm hoping to only take out the sections that are bad. Not really any surprise that there's a hole here because this tile is only 18 inches in the ground. The interesting part of this equation is deciding whether or not the tile's even worth salvaging. If it's in bad enough shape, we may just cap it. This is the downhill side of the pipe. It is relatively clean for a clay tile of this age, definitely salvageable. This is the uphill side of the clay tile, in much worse shape. However, that's probably directly because this hole existed, caused a block, and then ultimately we got silting up the line. If we fix this, it may actually clean itself out somewhat. As anticipated, we had to run back to the farm and get the correct size of tile. That's the way these projects always go. There's really no art to fixing these holes. It's kind of up to the discretion of the repairer. On some of these old clays that are structurally compromised, we found that the most reliable fix is to come in with a slightly smaller diameter of plastic pipe and slide it in there. Oh, that fits pretty good, Chris. Yeah. Trying to decide how much we should give ourselves.
Better than a hacksaw.
Yeah, that went right through it, didn't it?
That worked pretty good, didn't it?
You know, I just gotta make sure it's at grade. It's amazing how shallow this line is. It's not surprising that it broke.
be a nice day to fix the tile, isn't it?
That's why we're out here.
Not like last week when you're supposed to do it.
Well, I was gonna do it last week, but it was 20 degrees, so I figured
Yeah, I know.
let's just do something else. This break has been fixed to the best of our ability, though it is a little disheartening to see exactly how shallow this line is laid. Realistically, we'll probably be out here another year or two fixing it again, if not just completely replacing the entire stretch to the ditch. This is an old clay line, so either they didn't have the tools to dig it deep enough to reach grade out the ditch, or the dirt has just settled over time. I'm sure that the pre-existing tile hole here sucked a lot of that topsoil down and out. Probably should have got it repaired sooner, and we're gonna have some more issues to deal with some point down the line. I'll probably just have to come back out here with some fill dirt from another location to kind of beef up the topsoil there so we don't crush all that work we just did. Chris and I are headed to the next one. Don't worry, you're not gonna miss out. I've got like 15 of these to repair. Looks like Jeff's hauling out some beans. I might dive into the marketing aspect of hauling grain right now later in the video. What we're trying to accomplish, especially on that north bean bin, is core out that top cone. Most farmers and elevator managers will tell you that grain keeps a lot longer and in much better condition if you pull that cone down and core the bin and get some airflow through there. Just a small amount of grain can make a drastic difference. Here's our next farm. Speaking of risk management, I should note that it is probably in your best interest if you're going to be digging anywhere, especially of substantial depth like we will be with this backhoe, to call your local utility locating service. Make sure that at best you don't hit a fiber optic line and cost yourself your entire bank account, and at worst hit a natural gas line and literally just end your life. There's our next hole. Wow, that one's deep. The real reason that this one is so deep in the ground is because the dirt has been artificially elevated to create these terraces, resulting in a tile that is very far down there. The problem with ones this deep in the ground isn't getting down there, it's getting back up. How are we gonna get down here? Probably should have dug myself a staircase. Oh, that was easy. I somehow lucked out and dug parallel or somewhat parallel with this line, so it should be pretty easy to fix. All right, it's ready to be repaired. You'll notice that that side's in pretty good structural shape. This side to the northeast isn't as good, but I'll show you something. Eventually you have to make compromises with this old clay tile. You'll notice that this first 1 foot section has a little bit of a bow in the roof or the upper portion of it. If you look down the line, you'll notice that that's pretty much the way this entire line is. That trash will empty out once this gets flown again. But the best choice here is to disturb as little as possible, because if we start looking to perfect what's here, we're gonna have to replace the entire tile line. There's the downhill section of this line. You can see these are also starting to bend and bow in different places. Eventually this whole thing's just gonna have to be replaced. For now though, we're gonna try and keep the water moving where it's trying to go. The last one, we slid a smaller section of plastic tile into both ends of the clays. This one, it's a bigger tile, it's more round, so we're gonna try and just butt up a piece of plastic of the same size, which coincidentally we have. The goal with the plastic is to try and seal off this space where the two tiles meet. Water flowing typically creates suction, and if suction is adequate and there's an opportunity, the water will make its way down here in a way that pulls dirt with it. The dirt itself will naturally create a barrier to an extent. If the problem or the hole is severe enough, it'll create a much larger hole like what we're fixing right now. Those are to help secure all the connection down, and we'll throw some loose dirt on top of it just to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere when we backfill it. All that's left is to backfill it. Looks like it should hold, at least for a couple years. Here comes the really challenging part. Oh man. Start the fill with the bucket so I can kind of lightly cover the top of what I've repaired. Then I move the rest in with the loader bucket. In unsurprisingly opposite fashion of the last one, there was plenty of extra dirt. 1 out of 3 holes fixed in this field. Here's number 2. I'm actually fairly certain that Dad and I fixed a handful of these already, and they just weren't repaired properly, or the next few tile pieces down the line broke because of our work. So it's continuously going to be a war here over the next 10 to 20 years as we replace what goes out. And like I said multiple times, eventually you just got to replace the whole line with a new plastic line. Just finished digging this one out. Only did a minimal amount of damage to some extra pieces. It's about 10.5-inch diameter by 55 foot. Chris and I don't have that size of plastic or length in this truck. We have one more tile hole on this field. As opposed to leaving now, we're just going to go ahead and run down to that one and see what we need there. That way when we go to pick up tile, we can just get them both at once. For those of you who are curious what the line looks like I said, it's close to an 11-inch. Pretty clean. This gravel you see is just a result of the hole that we're fixing right now. That's downstream. And that right there is the upstream end. For a tile that's got to be 50, 60, or 70 years old, it's actually pretty darn clean in there. There's hole number 3. It's not exactly a small one. A lot of times though, the bigger the hole is can be indicative of a big tile being in here, or it could just be that we've let it go for too long without fixing it and it's sucked down a lot of the topsoil. See that old piece of plastic tile right there? That's a good sign that we've been in this hole before. I dug and I dug and I dug and I never found the tile. Oh, this fell down. Then it turns out I dug completely past the tile right through it and another 3 foot, so I had to repack some dirt. And now we're just going to try and evaluate what's going on here. Almost certainly something we've already patched before because I pulled out about 4 foot of plastic. The real problem with over digging is that you lose that grade or that base level where the clay tile was sitting. I dug way too far, so there's no guarantee that this dirt settles even. We'll try and do our best when we put it back together, but anything can happen. This is just a little guy. I'd say it's a 5 or a 6 inch. That thing.
A little more.
Chris and I vividly remember fixing this one before. Marty was involved, so who knows. I think what we determined is that this old clay line is just in terrible shape all the way throughout. I didn't even need to do that. Now comes the hard part, getting this thing to grade. There's quite a bit of fall uphill, so we will have a lot of head pressure. Still want to get it as close as possible to level. Probably be out here another couple years fixing this one again. Hopefully this gives us a little time. Trying to kind of establish a collar around it before I try and seal it off with plastic. Chris and I are averaging about an hour per repair job. We've only got 3 done. We're gonna go ahead and take a lunch break, and then I'm gonna go find some more tile. All we need to do is get the 10 to 11 inch to fit this little hole here, and then we'll have all 3 of these done. Chris and I are just getting back into the swing of things after our lunch break. I found the 12-inch plastic that I was looking for down here at our barn in Etna. I knew we had a 12-inch line somewhere, and I earmarked that there was something of that size in this barn, but there's really no rhyme or reason as to where or why a piece of tile is in a certain location. Maybe we fixed something down at one of these farms, had something going on in this barn, so we offloaded it. I really don't know. There's one thing I wish we were a little bit more of. It would be organized. Chris ate lunch with Jeff, who's the one who vertical tilled this field, and he informed us that there's actually another tile hole directly to the south. I would imagine the same size and probably the same exact line. So make that 4 tile holes out here, not 3.
Don't say anything if you do. There you got it. That looks better, Andy.
That looks a lot better.
Turn the punch on.
This one didn't snug up as nicely as I would have liked it to, so I would describe this project as a little bit more abstract. One day I'm going to be old and in a nursing home, and the next generation is going to be out working these fields, repairing these same holes, and they're going to come visit and ask, what in the world was I thinking with the methodology I used? Unfortunately, there's no book on tile repairs. It's kind of write it as you go. Now that I think about it, I do recall why we're behind on all these tile holes. Normally I would fix a lot of these in the late winter or early spring, but last winter I had my finger crushing ordeal, so I was kind of out of commission for 3 to 4 months where I couldn't really do much hands-on labor. That's why we got 15 tile holes to fix, because we didn't get them fixed last year. Show you all real quick what we're working with here. It's not the most optimistic picture I've ever seen. That is the uphill side of this tile. You can see just 3 foot down, there's a completely collapsed clay tile. And I don't think you guys can probably see as far as I can, but the tile as a whole for the next 100 foot, or at least as far as I can see, is decayed and collapsed in probably 5 to 6 different locations. Here's the downhill side, pretty much the same exact situation. You can tell it's not full of dirt, so the water is still clearing out. There's enough fall on this tile that this water is going to find its way to the exit regardless of what's in its way. That being said, this tile is going to have to be replaced here in the next couple of years. It's pretty evident in multiple locations that the structural integrity of this old clay tile is not the greatest, but we can't really condemn it without fully replacing it because it drains those big terraces on the northeast side of this farm. You got to keep the water moving. As is normally the case on the farm, time will tell whether or not our work was quality. I know that you're probably all bursting at the seams with excitement and anticipation for the next tile hole we're going to repair. I hate to break it to you, but that's going to be it for our tile hole repairs in this video. I have a no new projects policy after 4 p.m. unless it's planting or harvesting, and it's neither of those. Oh man, I'm gonna be sore tomorrow from crawling around in those holes. I know a lot of you were curious where the tracks went off our combine. Here they are, right here in this corner of the barn. Ground conditions never even came close to justifying the installation of those, and I'm so happy to be able to say that. The beans have been in the bin for less than a month and they're already leaving the farm. Slowly, but they are leaving. Dad and I have found something pretty exciting to work on. These oil well pipes. Bill and Stan Uphoff were kind enough to let us borrow their steel chop saw. It sure does help to have friends with very high quality power tools, because this would have taken us ages with our Sawzalls. All of the oil well pipe you see right here is unrelated to the plugging of our oil wells out here as a part of the government green renewable climate change incentives. This is actually just old transport piping that used to connect old wells out in this field, and the tile plow happened to dig it up. That went a lot faster than we were anticipating. That steel chop saw actually made a world of difference. Ever since the wells were decommissioned out in this field and fields, we've sporadically pulled up shallow lines since their termination, but nothing reaches quite as deep as a tile plow will, which is why there's so many lines there. We drug them all the way here because we're going to load them up, take them to the scrapyard. As opposed to taking the scrap metal to town by horseback, we are going to use a trailer. So we're going to be recruiting the help of our old friend, the backhoe. Shouldn't have to worry about a slow leak on the back right tire on this backhoe anytime soon, seeing as we had to take it off and have it completely replaced because the bead was going bad. Not exactly the cheapest fix, but now I don't have to go to the air compressor every time I want to use this. The backhoe is the convenient choice for this project because the bucket has a jaw that opens and closes, so we can grab the oil well pipes, put them on the trailer, and spit them out. You never know what kind of interesting projects you're going to drum up in the off season like we're working with right now. A lot of problems pop up during harvest season that get deferred to the earlier parts of winter before it gets bitterly cold. Fixing these lines that we drug out with the tile hole is priority number one because they are a little invasive on our entryways to the fields. Definitely a gloomy day out here in central Illinois. Chop saw is still in the back of my dad's pickup, so if we determine that we did not cut these to the right length or shape, we can just fire that puppy back up and saw right through them like butter. You can't argue that we didn't get our money's worth out of that saw blade. There's not much left but the core. Dad says he wants one of those for Christmas, but that's kind of out of my price range. Hope you guys took inventory before that left, because I have no idea how many pipes are on that trailer. For the record, no part of this process, other than installing the tile itself, has anything to do with making money. Taking scrap metal to town, more often than not, doesn't even pay for the fuel it takes to get to the metal yard. That's not even to mention the possibility that they may not even take used oil well piping. I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come. I don't really mind running the backhoe or doing any kind of busy work like this. As long as we're staying occupied with a project, it's much better than driving around doing nothing. Based on my ability to just sit here for long amounts of time, interrupted, while I'm doing some kind of field work, I think a bigger excavator would be a pretty nice fit for our operation, just because I could sit here all winter and dig out drainage ditches and do other projects. However, my dad would probably tell you, and I'm sure you've heard this before, the only thing I'm better at than farming is spending the farm's money. I've got a long laundry list of things that I'd love to add to our operation. And yes, many of them are probably going to return on investment pretty quickly, like a sprayer. but they all cost money at the end of the day. Marty's nowhere to be found, and my truck is about a half mile to the northeast over at his house, which brings me to my next predicament. In classic Dole family farm fashion, the backhoe has claimed another casualty. Fortunately for me, this time it is not my cell phone, but it is a phone, and arguably one that is actually more important than mine. I jogged over to my truck and I made an honest effort to try and locate the boss so I could showcase the damage to you all, but he's nowhere to be found. Take my word for it that no amount of tender love and care could put this phone back together. It is completely obliterated. When we're out and about working, it's actually not that uncommon for Marty's phone to slip out of his t-shirt pocket. Happens to the best of us. Normally, though, we catch it before it gets ran over with a backhoe. In this instance, that was not the case. Don't let these phone companies and app providers fool you to thinking that they're not listening to what you're saying out loud and texting to people. Other than mentioning the broken phone when I handed it to my dad, the only other thing I did was text my mom and sister and say, if you have any emergencies, call me or my Uncle Jeff because Marty's phone's out of commission. And you can see that we've got a very conveniently tailored ad right there for Cyber Monday deals on a cell phone. It's almost comical. They don't even try to hide it anymore. They clear as day are watching every single thing on your phone and trying to sell things to you with that information. I've got a pretty long laundry list of tile holes and other imperfections out in our fields to fix, but it rained close to an inch over the last couple days, meaning that the ground conditions aren't exactly fit to take a backhoe out. Other than a slight breeze and chance of storms today, the ambient temperature's not really that unbearable, so we are going to try and at least do something productive. Though washing equipment is one of my least favorite jobs of the season, it's still a job that needs to be done. While I wait a couple minutes for this 9620 to warm up a tad bit, I wanted to give you a quick update on the power situation. If you recall, when I was reworking all the ground we did the surface shaping on, this thing was constantly flashing low voltage warnings. I immediately related that back to the alternator that we had just had replaced under warranty, and as a matter of fact, the John Deere technician came out and looked at it, and the replacement alternator was also bad. So we have a third alternator on this tractor. The catch was that when they put the warranty alternator on, it was a reman or a remanufactured part, meaning that it was assembled from an already defunct alternator or from parts from many defunct alternators to create a replacement part that's more of a salvage or wholesale value. To be fair, I think at the time that's all that our dealership had in stock. We told them that if you're going to replace it again, especially under warranty, please put a genuine new alternator on the tractor. Hopefully that fixes our problems. I'm actually going to start by washing the vertical till, but I do need to get that out of the way, and it doesn't hurt to unfold it and knock the dirt off before we start washing. It kind of expedites the process. This vertical till needs a very good amount of dirt knocked off because it picks so much up while it works the ground. So I'm going to pull this out as well once we get that out of the way. We'll park this on top of the lime pile to get the dirt off. Okie dokie. Now for the vertical till. Those oil well pipes aren't in the way at all. Not one bit. See if we can squeeze this back in here. Got my mud boots on. Of course, there was water in them. I'm gonna start blasting the mud off of this vertical till. This darn thing's gonna make a no-tiller out of me in no time. I washed for maybe an hour on it. I'm completely drenched in muddy water. I'm not really having any fun. As a matter of fact, this is some of the least amount of fun that I've had in recent memory. But it is a necessary evil. I am quite literally going to have to change my pants at lunch. better than having to change your underwear at lunch, so that's something to be proud of. I finally joined the Cool Kids Club and got some foaming soap. Now this isn't the fancy Andy Clean stuff. I wish I had that, but I don't know if you can get it around here. This is just some stuff I bought off of Amazon that was highly reviewed, and hopefully does a good job cleaning this frame once we get the mud off. I may just go ahead and strip down and take a shower with this stuff, seeing as I'm pretty darn filthy. That actually looks pretty darn good for a used tillage device. I'll be the first one to admit that that's not going to win any awards, nor am I going to post it on Twitter and brag about my cleaning abilities, but you cannot argue that that does not look significantly better than it did before. While Dad, Chris, and Jeff unhooked the inline ripper, which didn't really see very many acres, so it's not very dirty and doesn't justify cleaning, I'm going to take my tire inflator and air up the corn head trailers, because we're going to back them in next. And yes, I did switch colors on this tool as well. I'm going Milwaukee across the farm here slowly. That means that the inline ripper's unhooked. We're going to try and put the corn heads in the southwest corner of the barn here. This should be interesting. These ones do tend to be a little bit easier to back though than the all-wheel steer carts we have the Drapers sitting on. I guess we're putting the vertical till in next. I'm not really sure why, but Marty's the boss and this is what he's doing. Vertical till is unhooked. Not where we were planning on putting it, but that is where it ended up. As some of you are aware, we have a brand new field cultivator being set up at John Deere right now, so the trade-in one is parked outside. It will have to come in here at some point in time, and it looks like we may have to rearrange our implement storage strategy because things are a little different this year than years previously. Didn't put the augers in, but we've got the corn heads coming in, and we're also going to try and put the disc ripper in as well, which we normally store back at the red shed. That combine's also on the list to be cleaned. I just don't know if we're going to get to it today. I don't want to be disingenuous. There's actually zero chance we get to it today, nor was there ever any plan. Before I run off to take a little lunch break and get a new pair of pants, I'm going to blast this thing down with that foam cleaner. See how it shines my pickup up. You know, I've yet to figure out how to wash something off without incidentally blasting my camera at the same time. I'm not going to say that this foaming cleaner is a silver bullet by any means. I think that you can still aid your cleaning process by scrubbing. It does look though like it's a pretty quick once over wash off and nice shiny finish. So it's definitely something that we're going to add to our lineup regularly to help keep everything looking nice and clean. We're not nut jobs like some of the farmers on social media who have everything clean as a whistle. This is equipment. It's not exactly a beauty contest. A pair of new pants and a t-shirt later, and we're headed back to work. And of course our stomach's full. Looks like we got some rains to the south. There's a pretty good chance that we get interrupted this afternoon, specifically with the possibility of strong storms. It looks like Chris and Jeff have already started washing that disc ripper, so we're gonna go kill a little bit more time. In my opinion, life's not about how hard you can work, it's about how well you can skirt out of the work that needs to be done. In all seriousness, I actually need to relay some information to Marty. He still doesn't have a phone. Here's what's left of Marty's phone. I don't think that we can put that back together. He may not have a choice but to move up to the 21st century and get an iPhone like the rest of us. Oh great, the rain has moved in. Can't be any worse than what I did to myself this morning with that vertical till and the power washer combo. That was a mess. My dad was joking around about the peace that comes with not having a cell phone. He said he's probably missed a call from 5 different seed salesmen today. For every bit of a curse that not having a cell phone is for the lack of communication, it's also a blessing. This is less than ideal. Wash bay is getting a little dirty. Okay, now time for the last corner.
Mom back!
I can't tell over there how far he's gonna be able to go. He'll probably get stopped by that. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you rat pack a barn. Second corn head went in without too much issue, except for my toes suffered the wrath of Marty. We are going to reposition the hitch on the second corn head. And he pulled out before I was ready and it fell down and just bopped me in the toes. I can put weight on them, so they're not broken. That's just what it's like dealing with him. He's incredibly impatient. Although these muck boots are mud-proof, they're not exactly Marty-proof. I'm not positive on where the best place to park this 8310R is. Those windows are a little dirty. I guess that'll do. Who knows? If Marty doesn't like it, he'll move it. Here comes the next tractor for parking. Anyways, I think that's more than enough farming for one video. If not for you, definitely for me, because I think I might have a few broken toes. As they say though, broken toes build character. Or something like that, I just made that up. Although there are small things going on here and there on the farm, it is a relatively slow time of year. We take care of a lot of things off farm. I have a few things in the next week that are going to preoccupy me, mainly the Illinois Farm Bureau annual meeting, and of course, maybe more importantly, getting this cancerous spot on my nose cut out. So next time you see me, if I don't film before then, I may have some bandages or be missing a chunk of my nose. So just warning you guys in advance. Before I go, I just wanted to let you all know that I do greatly appreciate every single one of you tuning in and continuing to support the channel. Your viewership means the world to me. I hope to see you guys all in the next episode, but until then, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!